Sai Ram. Invoking Bhagwan's presence and blessings, we offer our most humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Beloved Bhagwan, the speaker of the day, Miss Rama Sampath Madam, esteemed observers, revered elders, and my dear sisters, a warm welcome to the morning session of fourth day of the second batch of summer course in Indian culture and spirituality. To commence the session with an auspicious note, let's start the session with 3 times Omkaram and Sai Gayatri chanting.
ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्
Bhagwan, before we start our session, we all would like to offer our humble gratitude for taking care of the severe cyclone Amphan, which was about to hit many parts of Odisha very badly. But you, as always, have taken care of us during this turmoil and have given us yet another opportunity to hear words of wisdom from our speaker of the day, Miss Rama Sampath Madam. I consider it as a splendid opportunity to introduce the speaker for the day, Ms. Rama Sampath Madam. Ms. Rama Sampath Madam has completed her post-graduation in commerce and has also received diploma in Sathya Sai education at Thailand and diploma in integrated programming and AMP systems management. Ms. Rama Sampath Madam is currently working as a manager in the Corporate Communications Department at NABARD. Her valuable contribution in our Bhagwan's mission lies in serving as a faculty member of the Institute of Sathya Sai Education in India. She also serves as the editor of Sri Sathya Sai Balvikas magazine, India. We are indeed fortunate to have Ms. Rama Sampath Madam with us in this morning session, who will speak on the topic self-control and divine grace based on the 10th, 11th, and 12th chapters of the book Summer Showers in Brindavan, 1972. We have with us the esteemed observers, the revered elders, and Bhagwan's dearest participants. I welcome you all once again to this opportunity given by Bhagwan to evolve our souls through this session. I now request Rama Sampath Madam to deliver her talk and shine us with her pearls of wisdom on the topic self-control and divine grace. Thank you very much, Madam.
Om Shri Sai Ram. My most humble pranams to the lotus feet of Bhagavan, seated in all your hearts. And I wish to begin the session by thanking Swami for giving me this splendid opportunity to reach out to the sisters and brothers. I would also like to congratulate each and every one of you who has been chosen for this program. In fact, you are the chosen ones. Every time we get chosen for any program, we just take it for granted. We don't realize that Swami has a macro plan behind this. The same thing happened when 4 of us from Bombay and 11 of us from India were sent to Thailand to do this diploma because Swami wanted to start the Institute of Sathya Sai Education in India. So what unfolded later on, we realized that we were really the chosen ones, and we prayed to Bhagavan to always fill us with his divine wisdom. I was requested yesterday by the brothers and sisters whether I could speak in Hindi. I'm extremely sorry that my language of communication is through the language of the heart. And at that time, I promised the sisters that I would definitely make it very, very simple. At that time, I was reminded of one of the interviews we had with Bhagwan with pre-Seva children. And in that, when we asked Swami, how do we bring about transformation in the children, in the youth? Swami said, all you have to do is to fill them with stories from the lives of great men, from the lives of our saints, and from our epic. Transformation is my job. And that is why I have tried my very best today to take as many stories to convey this topic given to me, self-control and divine grace. Oh, okay. I was just trying to get the presentation onto the screen. Swami, in his birthday in 1968, has said, your devotion to God is best expressed by achieving control of the senses. Before we go to this, once somebody told Bhagwan, Bhagwan, I wish to dedicate my entire life to you, Swami. Swami told the gentleman, how can you dedicate your life to me when your mind, your sense organs are not in your own control? So, Bangaru, first you have to have control over your mind and sense organs before offering them to me. And Bhagwan is always with us in every endeavor of us. And that is why he has given us 2 pillars how we can go about doing this. He says, all we have to do is to try and direct all our efforts towards spiritual exercise and discipline and cultivation of detachment. These 2 are the pillars which is going to help us to achieve this self-control and secure the divine grace. Now, what are we made up of? Swami often has this habit of playing with words. He says, MBA is body, mind, and Atma. Body, along with the sense organs, is an instrument for action. The mind has been given to us to think, to inquire, to understand. And our Atma is the divine aspect, which is the divine reality in us. Now, before we go to the sense organs or the self-control, let us see what is our dharma as a human. See, dharma is often misunderstood to be a religion. We are not talking about the religion here. We all have several dharmas to perform. Like I have a dharma as a daughter towards my parents, as a sister towards my brother, and I have a dharma in my place of work. So we all have multiple roles to perform. But as a human being, what is our dharma? Swami says our dharma as a human being is first to establish contact with our inherent divinity. And that alone will help us to secure divine grace. Now, for that, he says we have to develop this knowledge and get very, very familiar with our body, mind, and Atma. Especially the mind, which is very, very powerful and restless. Now, the mind. I'm reminded of this story pertaining to Ramana Maharshi. Once in the ashram of Ramana Maharshi, there used to be several animals in his ashram. And it so happened once, a mother squirrel who had given birth to babies was accidentally eaten by the cat in the ashram. So now the babies were being fended by the ashramites. The babies were put in a cage in the meditation hall, and every day they used to have their meditation sessions there. And the baby used to keep chirping and coming out. One day we were having a satsang in this hall. It so happened that the same cat who had actually preyed upon the mother happened to be present in the hall. And the baby squirrels, without knowing, they were gushing out of the cage. Immediately, the sage Ramana got up and he gently picked up the squirrels, baby squirrels, and put them inside. And he then looked at one of the persons who had asked him this question. What was the question that was addressed to Ramana? He had asked Ramana, the mind, after all, is our mind, isn't it? It has to listen to us. So why do we have to even make efforts to control it by doing meditation and other things? It is but natural that it has to listen to us because it is our mind. But why is this happening? Why is the mind constantly running outside? So Ramana said, what did you witness now? The squirrels kept gushing out of the cage because they are immature. वो बच्चे हैं. They do not know the dangers in the outside world. That is, the world was the cage. So they did not know the dangers which was waiting for them outside the cage. He said, so is the case with our mind. Our mind is prone to going out into the external world without knowing that the external world is dangerous and it is full of misery. And so we have to gently put our mind inside. Like how I put the baby squirrel inside, we have to put the mind inside or direct the mind inside with the help of meditation in the initial stages. And when it becomes mature, then the mind will know how it has to behave. Our Bhagavan tells us the same thing. He says, when it is a little sapling, you have to put a fence around because it is likely to be preyed upon by the animals. But when it grows into a tree, a strong tree, the same animals which wanted to prey on it would come to seek shelter. So such is the case with our mind. Once we are able to direct it in the desired channel, and once it is strong, then it becomes a priceless instrument for us. Now, it is said, Bhagavan often jokes that even with one wife, you know what a trouble it is to manage the family. But imagine having 2 wives or 10 wives, like in the case of our mind. Bhagavan says the sense organs, the karmendriyas and the jnanendriyas, all the 10 organs trouble the mind. They keep making demands to the mind. And the mind is finally very, very frustrated, catering to the demands of all the sense organs. So, what happens is, if we have control over our desires, then what we get is lasting joy, and we get upgraded from human to divinity. In other words, we are able to realize our inherent divinity in us. But if we are not able to take care of our desires, and if we keep running behind everything in the external world, what we are going to be subject to is a lot of pain and misery. And Swami says then we are going to be devaluated from human to animal. And I remember this story which Bhagavan has told us. Bhagavan said that there was this king who had 5 wives. Now, managing these 5 wives was a big problem to him. He was
Saira ma'am, kindly unmute yourself. Saira.
okay. So this king had 5 wives, and it was very, very difficult. He thought to himself that I am the king of the entire kingdom, but I have no control over my queens here. So he wanted to find out whether all the people in the kingdom were actually frightened of their wives, whether they were also slaves to their wives. So he made an announcement on a particular day. He erected 2 tents, a white tent and a black tent. He said he announced that all the men who control their wives should come and assemble on a particular day in the white tent. And those who were controlled by their wives will have to come and assemble in the black tent. The day arrived, all the subjects reached the kingdom capital. And as the king looked out of the window, he could see that the tent, that is, the white tent, where he has said that all those people who control their wives should assemble there, he felt that it was practically empty. And the other tent, where all the people who were controlled by their wives had to assemble in the black tent, it was teeming with people. The king was extremely happy. He said, "My God, I'm not the only one who's frightened of my wife. All the men in my kingdom also face the same problem." But so he went down to still find out, to see whether there was any man in the tent which was meant for the person who controlled his wife. And to his surprise, he saw there was one lone man in this tent. So the king asked him, "My dear man, you are indeed great, for you have control over your wife. Can you tell me the secret, how you control your wife?" The man started shivering. He said, "Oh, my Lord, Majesty, let me tell you that I am here because that I have been ordered by my wife that I should stand in this tent. I don't have any control over her, but I'm so frightened of her that I have to be in this tent as she summoned me to be here." So such is the plight of the mind. Here, the king is the mind, and the 5 wives are the sense organs. So, if the mind is not able to gain mastery over the sense organs, this is the plight of the mind, as we realized here, that one who controls their desires. Now, before we go on to desires, let us see what is our mind made up of. Swami often gives this beautiful example of showing his handkerchief. And he says, "What is this made up of?" He says, "It is made up of yarns." And where has the yarns come from? It has been molded out of the cotton. So, Swami says, our thoughts are like this cotton. And when they are molded into desires, they take the shape of these yarns. And Swami says, you pick out all the threads or the yarns. Finally, you will have nothing left. So, in other words, our mind is nothing but a bundle of desires. And how do these desires come? They come from our never-ending thoughts. And the sense organs are also called the matra. Matra means it is used as the tool of measurement. Why are they called as the matras? Because here, let us say we are eating a fruit. Our tongue is testing out how sweet is the fruit. So, our eyes are trying to appreciate whether something is an object of beauty or not. So, our every sense organ is constantly trying to measure. Apart from this, one more interpretation that Swami says is that there is a limit to which these sense organs can be exercised. Once we transgress this limit, we are violating the dharma of our sense organs. How does this happen? Let us take the nose, the smell, right? The nose. Now, this has been given to us for breathing so that pure air reaches our lungs, to also be able to discriminate between a foul smell and a pleasant smell. But what do? If the nose is now used for taking snuff, then we are transgressing the dharma of nose, or we are violating this limit that has been given to us. So also with our eyes. The eyes have been given to us to see the good in all, to see the good in creation, to see the God in creation, and to take in something which is good. But what do? We take in everything that we come across. We don't edit. We don't screen. So what happens when we do this? Our mind gets polluted with what we take in. In fact, Swami says, it is not only food that we take in through the mouth. All that we take in through the sense organs is also our ahara. That is why we should be extremely careful of what we take in through each of our sense organs. Now, what happens when we get too emotional? Then we are losing control of our selves. Swami gives this beautiful example of Tukaram. Swami says that Tukaram had a very foul-tempered wife, Amli. She was very bad-tempered. And it is said that even Lord Vittala was scared of her. Now, Tukaram was always directing his mind in contemplation of Lord Vittala. And once he had gone to his field and the sugarcane was harvested. So this sugarcane he gathered in a cart and he was bringing it home. As he was bringing it home, on the way he met several people and he very generously gave away his sugarcane. There were children who met him and who wanted the sugarcane, and he distributed all the sugarcane. And finally, when he reached home, there was only one sugarcane left. And his wife was furious. She took that one sugarcane and she beat him with it. It is said the sugarcane broke into 3 pieces. So normally, somebody would have been very perturbed. But Tukaram, he just smiled and he said, "My God, my dear Avli, I was just wondering, I have just one sugarcane left, and how am I going to share it with the 3 members of the family? You and the 2 children. You have solved my problem now. Whatever you have in your hand, you can have it, and the other 2 pieces can be given to the children." So Swami says, forbearance and equanimity or equal-mindedness will also help us in control of our sense organs. Swami speaks very highly of Prahlad. He says Prahlad was lured by his father Hiranyakashipu with so many attractive things, just to say, "Give up the name of Hari and you chant my name." But this small child was not lured by any of these temptations. Secondly, he was intimidated by his father in so many ways. But Prahlad did not lose his equanimity. He had single-pointed devotion to Hari. And Swami says that alone helped him to secure the divine grace of the Lord. Swami also talks about the scientist Albert Einstein. Swami says that he always used to be engrossed in his experiments all the time. He would skip his dinner, skip his breakfast, and his wife would get tired cooking lunch for him or cooking dinner because he would never arrive and the food would get cold. One day she got very upset. He was up there in his lap and she had been calling him down for dinner. And she was so upset, she went with a jug of water and she emptied it on his head, said, "Come on now, come down for dinner." Albert Einstein smiled, even though he was dripping with water. He said, "My dear, every day it was only thunder showers, but today it's really a heavy downpour." So Swami says that he was able to maintain his humor and wit even in such an insulting situation. So what Swami means to say, it is not only the environment. Let us not blame our environment for the way in which our sense organs behave. Swami says if we have purity of intention and if we are having single-minded devotion, single-minded concentration, then we will be able to achieve this sense control with the help of the grace of God. And it is very important for us. That is why for the mind to screen every thought that comes in. What happens now if we do not screen ourselves? Any virus or anything in the environment can enter us. That is why a screening is done every time we are sick, now especially in the times of corona. So now it's important for the mind also to screen every thought that comes in. The great sage Dakshinamurti was once seated on the seashore and he was looking at the ocean, the waves rolling. At that time, he realized that any time somebody would dump some rubbish into the ocean, the waves would immediately push it out. So Dakshinamurti thought to himself, the ocean is so huge, so vast, and so deep. So why should it take so much of trouble to keep discarding every little garbage that is dumped into it? Now he realized that if the ocean were to neglect every little thing that came into it, what would happen eventually? The entire ocean would be filled with garbage. And later on, it is going to be very, very difficult for the ocean to get rid of the garbage. So is the case with our thoughts. Every time a thought enters our mind, Bhagavan says all we have to do is to ask ourselves, will Swami approve of this thought? And if the answer is yes, then we can let the thought remain. But if the answer is a strict no, we have to push this thought out of the mind immediately. Because a thought which remains in the mind and we keep ruminating on it, then these are the thoughts which get translated into action. Not only gets translated into action, but they become a habit. They take shape in the form of habits which get firmly rooted in our system. So it is very, very necessary to discard this in the stage of a simple thought and not give it greater advantage by letting it seep into our system. And as far as habits are concerned, once one of the professors asked Swami in Brindavan, Swami, how do we get rid of our bad habits? Is it necessary, Swami? Swami said, yes, you have to eliminate your bad habits. But how can we do it, Swami? It's so difficult. Have we to do it very slowly and gradually? So Swami looked at him and said, suppose you are holding a rope in your hand and suddenly you realize it is not a rope, but it is a snake. You mean to say you will discard it very, very slowly? No, you will immediately hurl it out, screaming, it's a snake. So every bad habit is as venomous as this snake, and it has to be discarded. Again, the professor said, but it's so difficult, Swami. Can you please guide us how we can do it? Swami took an envelope which was in the room and he folded it, rolled it. He rolled it and he gave it to the professor who asked the question and asked him, now, how do I straighten it? So the professor took the envelope in his hands and he rolled it in the opposite direction. So the moment he did it, the envelope became flat. So Swami said, in order to counter a bad habit, you have to start a good habit. And then your mind will concentrate on nurturing the good habit. And in the case of thought, it is like the horse. You know, you take the horse. We are driving in a horse carriage. And suddenly, as we are driving in the horse carriage, we find the car driver who is just whipping the horse, even though the horse is going straight. So we ask this fellow, why are you whipping the poor animal? It's going in the right direction. So then the car driver tells us, Sahib, you do not know. We are now approaching an open railway crossing. And there are some white stones of which the horse is very frightened of. So the moment we reach the railway crossing, she normally stops and refuses to go. So what I do is I start whipping her as we approach this railway crossing. Now she's so scared of my whip, she forgets the white stones. They no longer frighten her. And we will be able to cross this railway crossing. In other words, when our mind is dragged towards an unpleasant thing, all we have to do is to channelize our mind in another pleasant direction. And the best way to do is to channelize our mind towards God. And this is what Arjun told Krishna. Arjun told Krishna that this mind is very, very difficult to control. It is faster than the wind. My Lord, everything that you tell me, I can understand. But what do I do with this mind? And do you know, Arjun was no mean person. He was the person who had the greatest focus, the greatest concentration. So much so that you must be aware of this. When Dronacharya held this test for all the princes, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, he had kept this bird on the tree, the toy bird, and told everybody that they had to hit the eye of the bird. And when he asked everybody, what did you see? What do you see before you take aim? Everybody told him, I see the tree, I see the leaves, I see the sky, I see the bird, and I see the eye. So people, all the princes came out with various versions. But it was Arjun alone who said, I see only the eye, the eye, the eye of the bird. Such was his power of concentration. And here, this great warrior, this great man with great foresight and concentration was having trouble with his mind. So what did Krishna tell him? Krishna told him, Asam Shayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagena Rahyai. So, undoubtedly, what you say is correct. The mind is indeed very, very difficult to restrain, to control. But I give you two priceless pillars. That is abhyas or practice, practice and practice. And detachment. These two will definitely help you to gain control over your mind. Now, what is this detachment? Detachment is taking our mind away from the world and directing it towards the lotus feet of the Lord. But is it very, very easy to do this? What happens when we sit for meditation? What do you think happens? We are trying to think about the Lord or our object of meditation, or we try to take the light, but our mind keeps dragging it out. But Krishna says with practice, you again tell the mind, not there, but here. Drag it back. And as you practice, practice, and practice, you will be able to gain control. I'm only telling you it is difficult to control or restrain the mind, but I have not told you it is impossible. Let us take the world. There are so many difficult tasks that we perform. You IT stalwarts, you do so much of coding which all goes over my head, the coding. You're able to do so many difficult things. And there are people who perform various feats which are very, very difficult. How are they able to do it? By practice, by focus, by concentrating. Now, if we are able to do this in the material world for material gains, is it not possible to do this for focusing on the lotus feet of the Lord? Because that alone will help us to gain control over our mind. So Krishna didn't tell him, "Oh Arjun, what you're saying is wrong." He said, "It's right, I agree with you." But he says there is a way out of every problem. Now, we said that it is our dharma as a human being to connect to the inherent divinity in us. Let us say that we have a new BMW car. It's fully equipped with all the latest gadgets. And what are we going to do with it? We are not going to keep it in the garage. We are going to get familiar with all the things equipped there. We get familiar with getting our hands to drive this car. And then after we get familiar with this new car, then we proceed on our journey. Swami says, in the same way, the body has been given to us, equipped with the mind, with the sense organs, and of course the Atma, which is inherent in us. That is why the body is called the moving temple. So, Swami says it is time for us also to start our journey towards our goal, to connect with the divinity within us. But he said, this is not possible unless we get familiar, the way we had to get familiar with all the controls of the car. He says it's important for us to get familiar with our faculties, with our mind, with our sense organs, and then alone we will be able to proceed on this journey. And what, you may ask, is the purpose of self-control? It is definitely not to torture our body. But in fact, every time we exercise our self-control, Swami says we are actually building our willpower or Ichha Shakti to overcome the Maya of this world. And in order to reach the higher levels of joy for which we have come, for which we have taken birth. Now, our senses are like the horses. The mind is the reins, and the intellect is the charioteer. And Swami says our body is the chariot. Now, if we are not able to control the horses, we are sure to have an accident. The cart will overturn, capsize. So let us see in absolute detail now of each sense organ and what is the dharma related to each and every sense organ. Swami says the most important sense organ is the mouth. Why the mouth? It is the tongue alone which has got twin functions of tasting as well as speaking. Swami says half your job is done if you gain control over your mouth, over your speech, over your taste. Half your job is done. You see the horse, whenever the horse is driven, the horse has got a bridle around its mouth. Now, why a bridle around its mouth? It is said that is one of the vulnerable portions of the horse. Although it is a very strong animal, but with the help of this small bridle, the horse is able to focus and it's able to go in the right direction. Swami says, so also, if we have control over what we talk, this organ of speech has been given to us to talk the truth, to talk pleasantly, to talk politely, to talk sweetly. Swami says that we should always speak the truth. And sometimes when we feel it is dangerous to speak the truth, and if it is not required for us, then we may not speak at all. We may remain silent unless it is required. And this reminds me of this little story Swami has told us. He said once there was this great sage who had taken a resolve that I am not going to hurt anybody and I will also not speak the truth. And it is said Lord Indra wanted to test out this sage. He said, let me go and put some impediments and see how he adheres to this resolve that he has taken. So he created a hunter and he also created a rabbit. Now this hunter was chasing the rabbit and the rabbit went and hid himself somewhere near where this sage was seated. Soon the hunter came in search of the rabbit. He asked him, did you see the rabbit? Did you see the rabbit? Now this sage was in a dilemma. What was the two vows he had taken? That he's not going to speak any lies and he's not going to hurt. If he tells the hunter, yes, I saw the rabbit, and then the hunter will hurt. So indirectly he would hurt somebody. And if he did not tell the truth, what would happen? Then he would be uttering a lie. So he prayed to God. He said, you are my Vak Shakti. So you please guide me, you speak through me. And immediately when he prayed so sincerely, he could hear the words that came out of his mouth. He said, my dear hunter, what the eyes see, the tongue cannot speak. And what the tongue speaks, the eyes cannot see. So after he conveyed this, the hunter had to move away because he did not understand anything. So Swami says, such is our case. We also have to make every effort to adhere to truth and also not hurt anybody with our speech. He says that if we slip while walking, the injury caused will probably go away after some time. But if the tongue slips, the injury caused will take a long time to heal. And what are the things that we indulge in with the help of our speech? Speaking ill of somebody, it's one of the point of code of conduct. Speaking ill of somebody behind their back, indulging in gossip. These are the things our tongue should refrain, says Bhagavan. There was this man who had spoken so ill about his neighbor and he had spread some rumor about him which was not true at all. But because of which this neighbor, the old man, his reputation was spoiled. And so The man realized finally that what he had spread about his neighbor was not correct. So he came to him to apologize and said, "I'm sorry, what I did was wrong. Please forgive me." So the old man told him, "I want you to go home. You have a feather pillow at home, isn't it? You cut open the feather pillow and you scatter all the feathers." So now this young man thought it's quite easy to do it, to be forgiven. So he went and he cut open this pillow. And the moment he did it, all the feathers got scattered in different directions by the wind. Now, when he came back to this old man, he said, "Now I have done what you have said. Will you please forgive me now?" He said, "No, you are over. Now you have to go and get back all the feathers." He said, "How can I get back all the feathers? The feathers have all been scattered already by the wind." He said, "Yes, the damage you did to my reputation is such. Whatever you spread about me, the gossip you spread about me has already spread to everybody, and the damage has been done. So it is no use asking for forgiveness now." So Swami says we have to exercise great control over our tongue. And for the youth, Swami says, why is it important for us to speak only when it is required, to speak that which is beneficial? Because when we don't indulge in unnecessary talk, we are conserving a whole lot of energy which can be channelized in a better way. We need to conserve our energy. That is why we need to maintain our silence. And the second thing is, when we maintain our silence, it also helps us to focus better. I'm sure even when we are silent with our mouth, our mind is constantly chattering. And we have ways to bring this to reduce the chatter of our mind. In fact, what is meditation? One of the reasons why we do meditation, apart from self-control, it is the best tool for achieving self-control. But how do we do this? When we do our meditation, what we are trying to do is to take care of all the thoughts which are troubling us. We are trying to reduce the flow of our thoughts till finally we reach a point where we have only one thought left. That is the thought which we should focus with great effort at the lotus feet of the Lord. So we have to concentrate on the lotus feet of the Lord by eliminating all other unnecessary thoughts. So it is very important for us to maintain our silence. Now, as far as the speech is concerned, we saw what is the dharma of our tongue. What is the dharma of our eyes? To take in what is pleasant. Now, this is the age of social media, when we have a whole lot of temptations open to us. But what we take in is what is useful to us. We can't ban the internet or the social media saying that it is bad. We have to be able to discriminate. Use our Viveka Shakti to take in that which is useful to us, to filter what is useful to us. It is this intellect which helps us to discriminate. what to discard, and what to retain. So it is the dharma of our eyes to take in only those things which are useful to us. From the eyes to the tongue, we discussed the nose already. And what about the dharma of our skin, the sense of touch? It is here we have to, our skin is in touch with the external world like all other sense organs. And all we have to do is to rise above the body consciousness in order to take our mind away from the external world and to bend our body in service. So we have to rise above body consciousness. And Swami says that we have to remain detached, vairagya, he says. Now, this vairagya does not come overnight. Even to somebody like Lord Indra was once cursed to be a pig, and he started living with the pigs. He set up his family with little piglets, and he was very happy to be in the muck and the dirt. Once, the sage Narada passed by and he saw Indra, and he tried to remind him who he was. But Indra was said that he was very happy to be the way he was. Such is the Maya. Such is the Maya of the external world that we get entangled in this world. And Swami says this faculty of tongue has been given to us to sing the glory of the Lord, to chant the name of the Lord. Nama Smarana is what we have to be constantly engaged in. And what is this efficacy of Nama Smarana? Swami gives this beautiful story. He says once, Sage Narada went to Lord Vishnu and asked him, what is the meaning of the word Rama? So Lord Vishnu pointed to a parrot and he said, in the Bhuloka, go and ask the parrot, what is the meaning of the word Rama? So the moment Sage Narada went and asked the parrot, what is the meaning of the word Rama? The parrot collapsed and died. He again came running back to Vishnu. He said, what is this? The moment I asked the parrot died. He said, okay, now there is this newborn calf there. Why don't you go and ask him, what is the meaning of the word Rama? So Sage Narada approached this calf and asked him, what is the meaning of this word Rama? The moment he asked this question, the calf collapsed and died. And Narada fled from the place before he was beaten up by people. He again asked, what is this? You mean to say the meaning of the word Rama is death? Why is everybody dying whenever I ask him, what is the meaning of the word Rama? So he said, now you go and ask the prince, the newborn prince in the palace. So Sage Narad thought, you're going to land me in trouble. If the prince dies, I will be imprisoned there. So Lord Vishnu assured him, Abhaya, he said, go and ask the prince. So he went and asked. He went to the little baby and he started blessing him first with a long life. And naturally, the palace people were very happy to have the sage Narad there to bless the baby. And then he asked him slowly in a sing-song way, the form of a shloka, what is the meaning of the word Rama? The child did not die. He started smiling. And he told Narad, Oh Narad, when you first asked me this question, I was just a little bird. I got evolved from a bird to a calf. And then when you asked me when I was a calf, I got evolved from a calf to a human. So don't you see how powerful is this Ramanama? This helps us to evolve. And when we chant the Ramanama as humans, it will help us to evolve from this human body to divinity, to merge with divinity, and to realize the inherent divinity in us. So Sage Narad finally got his answer. And what about the sense of hearing? Yes, the sense of hearing is very, very important. Swami says, we take in everything what we hear through the ears. We listen to all the news. Even now, we are busy listening to all the fake news, and we keep spreading it around without pausing to examine whether it is right or wrong. Swami says we have to first learn to listen and not just to hear. Shravanam, by merely listening to the story of the Lord. Parikshit was able to merge with the divine. Although he had been cursed to die of a snake bite, which could not be revoked, he was told that he had to spend his last days listening to the stories of the Lord, and he was assured that he would merge with the divine. Shravanam, such is the power of listening. But there are many times we only hear and we don't listen. Like it happened in the case of Ram Krishna and Rani Rasmani. Ram Krishna was talking about the mother to Rani Rasmani and her son-in-law Mathur Babu. And as he was speaking about the glory of the goddess, he suddenly realized that Mathur Babu was not in tune with him. He just gave him a slap. The Rani was shocked. He said, your son-in-law is thinking about some court case. His mind is not here. His sense of hearing, he's not listening to what I am telling about the goddess. So it is very important for us to focus on our listening and to sharpen our listening skills so that it doesn't become a monotony of hearing. It is not hearing, but listening. Now, these 5 sense organs, we saw what is the dharma of each of our sense organs. Swami says that if you have one pointed devotion and you surrender yourself to the Lord, then this sense control will become easy to you. Now, what is the purpose of sense control? I told you it is to develop the Ichha Shakti or the willpower. Now let us see what is this willpower. This willpower is like our muscle. I do not know how many of our sisters exercise, but whenever we exercise a particular muscle, only then the muscle develops a particular, every muscle, the trainer will give you exercises meant for every muscle. And he will also tell you, suppose we exercise the muscles of the legs today. Tomorrow we will be exercising our shoulders and the arms. Why? Because we exercised our leg muscles today, they have got fatigued and they will not be able to grow. They need time. So, in the same way, this is what happens to the willpower. In fact, this willpower comes from the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And this is the place of self-control. And the very best exercise for enhancement of self-control is meditation. Let us see how our willpower improves while we are doing this meditation. Like I told you, we are taking our mind, which is going out, running away. We are bringing it back desperately and again telling him to focus on the object of meditation. Every time we do this exercise, it is improving our self-control and our willpower. Ichha Shakti is getting developed. So, it is very, very important for us to develop our willpower. In the 1950s, a very interesting experiment or a research was done by a man called Walter Mischel, a scientist called Walter Mischel, who studied the self-control of 4-year-old children. Now you'll wonder, we ourselves don't have self-control. How are the 4-year-olds going to have any self-control? It's very interesting what he did with these 4-year-old toddlers. He took a group of 4-year-old toddlers and he told these children, I will be giving you a chocolate, a big bar of chocolates. But you should not be eating it for 20 minutes. If you do not eat it for 20 minutes, I will give you one more bar of chocolate. So you will have 2 bars of chocolate at the end of 20 minutes. The moment the chocolate was placed before these toddlers, few of them, for them, it was just the sight of a bar of chocolate. They immediately gulped it up. But there were some toddlers who could hold on for 2 minutes. There were others who could hold on for 7 to 8 minutes. And there were few of them who could hold on for 20 full minutes. And what did they get at the end of it? One more bar of candy. Not this. This is not all. This research was continued years later to check out how these children were faring. It was found all those children who could exercise enough willpower and sense control as a 4-year-old were excelling in their academics. They were extremely good in their interpersonal relations because they had control over their emotions and they were doing very well in their jobs and they were happy with life. But those other people who could not exercise this self-control, it was found that these people couldn't do well in their academics. They had problems in their interpersonal relations, had trouble securing jobs, and some of them even landed in prison. So that is why it is extremely important to develop this willpower and enhance our self-control. And how do we do it with meditation? Because as we sit, all those distracting thoughts come in. And every time we make an effort to check out those distracting thoughts, It is the greatest exercise of willpower and self-restraint. And Swami has given us this beautiful, simple example of the watch for the self-control. He says all you have to do is to watch your words, watch your actions, watch your thought, watch your character and heart. And then you will be able to exercise your self-control. And one of the things that happened in meditation is, it was found that even 3 hours of meditation, there were changes in the brain. And when the mind was exposed to 11 hours of meditation, I don't mean at a time, I mean progressively. When the mind was exposed to 11 hours of meditation, the pattern of the brain completely changed. The way it handled the activities completely changed. Now, willpower, self-control go hand in hand with discipline. Swami says, the 4 F's: follow the master, face the devil, fight till the end, and finish the game. Follow the master. Here, the master is your inner voice. Call it the voice of the Atma. Call it the voice of the conscience or the voice of God or the intellect. Face the devil. These are the external things in the world, temptations which drag us. We have to face them and we have to fight them in order to finish the game of life. But many times, what comes between knowledge and implementation? Let us say we have resolved from tomorrow morning, we will get up at 4 o'clock every morning to do our meditation. This is because we have this knowledge that meditation is going to help us. We have knowledge on one hand, and we need to implement it to become a reality in our life. But this gap between knowledge and implementation. This is bridged by discipline. This is what we saw. Unless this is bridged by discipline, we cannot achieve success in life, as we saw in this research conducted by Walter Mischel. Now, like we have seen several instances where we undertake the most difficult tasks, but now all we have to do is to put our best foot forward to see how we can focus our mind, how we can get mastery over our sense organs, because this alone will help us to secure the divine grace. Because every time we lose control over our emotions, it weakens us. It depletes us of our powerful energy. So we may be doing a meditation and we are filled with energy, filled with positive energy. But then we go about into the world. We go about abusing people. We go about fighting with people. Or we go about misusing our sense organs. Then what happens? All the energy gets depleted within no time. So divine energy, in order to get this divine grace, we have to surrender to God. And that is why Swami says, we have to make use of our God-given faculties. Surrendering does not mean saying, oh, I'm going to sit quiet without doing anything. It means surrendering our faculties and our energy to do legitimate work, to dedicate all our activities to the Lord. But this can never happen like we saw unless we have control over ourselves. Then only we are in a position to dedicate ourselves in the service of the Lord. And this is one thing I wanted to share with you is the mind. We have the mind. The poor mind is caught between the sense organs on one side, on the intellect on the other side. And it is for the intellect which derives its 90% energy from the Atma. And this percolates to the mind. From the mind, it percolates to the sense organs and to the body. But what happens? Now, let us take water, which comes, when it comes from its source, the origin, it is very pure. But as it flows along, it collects all the rubbish and impurity. And finally, what reaches us is something very impure. This is what happens to the light that comes from the Atman. So in order to keep this light pure, we have to do this abhyas or sadhana. We have to do our namasmaran and we have to do our meditation. This abhyas alone is going to help us to actually concentrate on the lotus feet of the Lord. Swami says, whatever we see around us is a projection of the mind. Manamulam idam jagat. He says the mind, the entire universe is nothing but a projection of the mind. Krishna called Duryodhana and he called Yudhishthira or Dharmaraj. He asked them to go into the kingdom to find out how the subjects were. Duryodhana came back telling Krishna, my lord, everybody is so wicked. They are so malicious. I couldn't find a single person of virtue in the kingdom. When Dharmaraja came back to Krishna, he said, Bhagavan, everybody is so good. There is so much to learn from everybody, Bhagavan. I have a lot of things to learn. There is so much of good in the world. So Krishna said, Bhagavan says that Duryodhana was so much full of negativity, full of malice, that what he saw was the projection of what was within him. And what Dharmaraj saw was the projection of his innate goodness. So that is why it is important for us to keep our mind very pure. Why are we not able to see the reflection of the Lord? If the inherent divinity in us, why are we not able to see God? It's because we are covered with this muck or dirt. We have the Shadripus, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. So this curtain of impurities, we have to break this curtain in order to see the inherent divinity in us. So the mind is a very priceless organ, very priceless instrument which can take us closer to the Lord, which can liberate us from the shackles of the body. It depends upon how we use this mind. Swami says, you turn the lock one side, Turn the key one side, it locks, and turn it to the other side, it opens. In the same way, we have bondage and the world on one side, and we have liberation. So it is in our own hands how we make use of our mind. So we need not blame the mind, but all we have to do is to tame the mind. We have to channelize our mind to guide it. And like Ramana said, till it matures, we have to keep putting it inside so that we are able to connect with the inherent divinity in us. So I would like to conclude this presentation by saying that sense control, although it appears very, very difficult, if we have one-pointed devotion, Bhagavan assures us nothing is impossible. If we have one-pointed devotion, and if we are able to surrender ourselves to the Lord, He says, I am with you to guide you, to guard you, to protect you always. And that is why we need to pray. Anyata sharanam na asti, tvameva sharanam mama, tasmat karunya bhavena, raksha raksha saishvara, raksha raksha saishvara, raksha raksha saishvara. Om Shri Sai Ram.
Sarah ma'am, thank you very much for your wonderful and energizing talk today in this session. Thank you very much for reviving and reminding us the valuable lessons and stories told by Bhagwan on sense control, mind control, how we can get rid of our bad habits, the dharma of every sense organ, namasmarana, how one-pointed devotion can help us in sense control, watching the watch, the four F's, and Manam Moolam Idam Jagat. The wonderful stories and analogies narrated by you during the talk were awe-inspiring for us and was very appropriate for us to understand how we can control our monkey mind. You have presented to us the wonderful tips given by Bhagwan on how we need to be careful on what ahara we take through different senses. Lastly, I want to say your talk has helped us open the channels in our mind to completely direct them towards the lotus feet of the Lord. The entire summer course team thanks you for your valuable time, madam. With this, we come to an end of this morning session. I thank all the guest observers, elders, and participants for their gracious presence. Bhagwan, it is hard to find words to express our gratitude to you, but being the very support of this beautiful session, we all thank you from the bottom of our heart for being with us throughout. Bhagwan, we now pray you to bless us with a bhajan in your sweet voice, and we offer this beautiful session at your lotus feet. Thank you, Sairam.
Sai Ram.
भय हरण वंदित चरण भव भय हरण वंदित चरण जय राधा जय माधव जय राधा जय राधा जय माधव गौरी मंगल चरण कलिमल दहना मंगल चरण कलिमल दहना नारायण केशव नारायण केशव
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।